Jesus Christ teaches the way back to our eternal home. He understands our Heavenly Father's plan of eternal progression better than any of us. After all, He is the keystone of it all.
Jehovah, we promised Adam and Eve that we would visit them and give them further instructions. Come, let us go down.
We will go down, Elohim.
I hear their voices. They are coming.
See, you are naked.
Take some fig leaves and make you aprons. Father will see your nakedness. Quick, hide. Come, let us hide.
Brethren and sisters, put on your aprons.
Among the most common sexual sins, pregnancy and abortion, all ugly sins, but in and of themselves, they are pernicious evils.
Stay in harmony with the Lord's anointed, those whom He has designated to declare church doctrine, maintaining loyalty to prophetic leadership and devotion to revealed doctrine.
With the help of 2 Hebrew scholars, I learned that one of the Hebraic meanings of the word Israel is let God prevail.
The garment which has been placed upon you is to cover your nakedness and represents the coat of skins spoken of. We will put each of you under covenant to obey the law of the Lord. Brethren and sisters, each of you bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you solemnly covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar that you will obey the law of the Lord and keep His commandments. Each of you bow your head and say, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Brethren and sisters, we will now put you under covenant to obey and keep the law of sacrifice. And as Jesus Christ has laid down His life for the redemption of mankind, so we should covenant to sacrifice all that we possess, even our own lives if necessary, in sustaining and defending the kingdom of God. Each of you bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you solemnly covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar that you will observe and keep the law of sacrifice as contained in the Holy Scriptures as it has been explained to you. Each of you bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
We are required to give unto you the law of the gospel, which is the higher law taught by Jesus Christ, as contained in the Holy Scriptures, to give unto you also a charge to avoid all like-mindedness, loud laughter, evil speaking of the Lord's anointed, the taking of the name of God in vain, and every other unholy and impure practice, and to cause you to receive these by covenant. Each of you bring your right arm to the square. Each of you covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses that you will observe and keep the law of the gospel and this charge as it has been explained to you. Each of you bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We are instructed to give unto you the law of chastity, which is that the women of God's kingdom and the men of God's kingdom shall have no sexual relations except with those to whom they are legally and lawfully wedded according to his law. Each of you bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you individually covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses that you will observe and keep the law of chastity as it has been explained to you. Each of you bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We are instructed to give unto you the law of consecration, as contained in the Book of Doctrine and Covenants, in connection with the law of the gospel and the law of sacrifice, which you have already received. It is that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Each of you, bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar, that you do accept the law of consecration as contained in the Doctrine and Covenants, in that you do consecrate yourselves, your time, talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, or with which he may bless you, to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth, and for the establishment of Zion. Each of you, bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, to each member of the church I say, keep on the covenant path. A people who rejoice in their agency to live the higher, holier laws of Jesus Christ. I call upon you, my dear brothers and sisters, to become this righteous people. Cherish and honor your covenant above all other commitments. As you let God prevail in your life, I promise you greater peace, confidence, joy, and yes, rest.
The mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again.
The Lord wants all his children to partake of the eternal blessings available in his temple. He has directed what each person must do to qualify to enter his holy house. All requirements to enter the temple relate to personal holiness. To assess that readiness, each person who wants to enjoy the blessings of the temple will have 2 interviews. First, with a bishop, bishopric counselor, or branch president. Second, with a stake or mission president or one of his counselors. In those interviews, several questions will be asked. Some of those questions have recently been edited for clarity. I would like to review them for you now. Are you a full tithe payer?
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming.
Travis Rangoon. So, this morning, I expect sometime today that Ray Montgomery will come and murder me. He has given me 2 warnings a week apart, and so I expect that I will be murdered today. This is morally wrong of him. His justification is that I believe, well, I know, that the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith are in the learning of the Jews. They say so. I take them at their word, and I've applied their word and have produced the results. Yeah, learning of the Jews. And so for Ray to seek justice, as he supposes, to murder me, because Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are in the learning of the Jews and not non-Trinitarian Christian Jesus, he believes that he has the moral right to murder me. There are numerous moral, ethical theories all of which are wrong. Because again, using logical Socratic methodology to develop theories, have those theories scientifically tested for confirmation to establish facts, none of them do. And yet they continue to exist and be utilized by various people. For example, the evolutionary theory. The evolutionary theory is a moral theory, claiming to be a scientific theory. Unfortunately, the evolutionary theory, the theory of evolution even, have not been able to be tested for confirmation to establish fact. There have been tests run that have deconfirmed or rejected the theory, but they still keep going. And people keep branching off from it. As you see Star Trek and other Hollywood shows do that branching off for them. It is a false moral theory, and you can see on Star Trek where they're going with this. You know, evolutionary theory, well, all sentient life therefore can't be murdered. We have to have the prime directive and blah blah blah. Those are based upon the moral theory that originated with Gene Roddenberry, and it's wrong. And because it's wrong, it's therefore immoral, because it cannot be confirmed as factually moral. So it must be done away with. Must have in Wikipedia the statement that it is a false theory, a fallacious designed false theory. And they won't do it. And so people continue to be miseducated, which is a consequence of having an immoral theory being imposed upon the populace. Psychology in its present form, which, as I've gone over with you before, was constructed by Stanley Smith Stevens, Mormon. Morally wrong. Immoral. Because psychology uses fallacy arguments. Automatically wrong. The theories that they claim they are developing always produce negative results. They do not confirm the results. And therefore, wrong, automatically. And it's worse because psychology, to reinforce it, uses drugging to claim that their theories are accurate and confirmed. The most tragic example was the video I did when I checked out Kenzie, who had left the church because she believed Joseph Smith was a polygamist. And she tells of her origin of being a 15-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted, she claims, by a Melchizedek priesthood holder who was married. And she reported it to her priesthood leaders, and it was all covered up. And so when she turned 23, she decided she wanted to go on a mission. And so in the bishop's interview, the bishop asked, are there any sin in your life that you need to discuss with proper priesthood authority? And so she told, again, the 15-year-old girl sexual assault. The bishop then called the church's hotline. The hotline told him to take her to family services. Psychology. Family services realized that she was not going to let it go, and therefore they designated her as depressed, drugged her, and told her bishop that she's not capable of serving a full-time mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she doesn't realize that that was further abusing her. She still, to this day, believes the diagnosis of the psychologist that she's depressed and continues to be drugged for it. That is a moral evil that the church did to her, which was the exact same moral evil that the Nazis did to the Jews in World War II, that the Russians in the 60s likewise did to political opponents. Russia just had their election. There was a certain political opponent who was well beloved who didn't get to run in that election because he was murdered in prison. These are moral abuses. And so, in the field of ethics, there are different categories, and they're all wrong. It has the little box of ethics here, which has arrows leading to all over the place. It's just 4 categories only. This is a psychological approach to ethics, and it's morally, fallaciously wrong. It has obligatory, prohibited, permitted, and omissible. No, there's more to this. This is a fallacious argument. This is a non-dichotomous categorization that is a self-fulfilling prophecy that gets the victim to self-fulfill the self-fulfilling prophecy of the ethicist. And so you've probably been aware of Star Trek, in which Vulcans are supposedly logical. They suppress their emotions, and that's all crap. Because arrogance and supremacy over other people is a moral, emotive response in which it's immoral. It does not produce the factual results of being morally good. And you can see that in the show as you carry through. Spock is constantly proven wrong, and yet he continues to claim that he's got the moral high ground through logic. Vulcan would never have been blown up had they actually used logic. Not the claim of logic. But again, that's the script writers who have a weakness in information and are presenting that information as if it is morally good and true, as they're able to write in the script that the consequences always work out for the better. No, you can't do that and claim to have the moral high ground. And so when it comes to religion, all religions, likewise, are morally corrupt. They all claim to be moral. They all claim to be the one true morality. They are morally wrong. And this is because of knowing in advance what is correct. And nobody has it. Nobody knows the correct morality. And only one who does know the correct morality is capable of judging that all else are incorrect. And I just got that from the Bible. It's right there, Christians. You missed it. It's in Matthew chapter 7, where every Christian misinterprets it by saying we are unable to judge other people. That we have to let people do whatever they want, even to us, and we can't judge them. God is their judge. Well, God is not their God, and so they are not morally obligated to obey your God. Dear God. And so it goes on to talk about how a righteous judgment is required, and goes over the theory by which to run the test. It's science. Wow. The Jews used science to write their scriptures, and then Christians use supersessionism to replace the Jews, and then corrupted it. Likewise with Brigham Young and Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon's works and precepts. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. You're supposed to take the Book of Mormon precepts and run the tests for confirmation. That's what I did my whole life. That's why I know what is moral and what is immoral. I am the first and only one to develop a moral theory that actually works. I am the only one to develop a morality of Mormonism from Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. Because I did it. I implemented it and got multiple confirmations establishing fact. And that's it. It's not consequentialism. That's where you justify the means to the end. No, that is an immoral. Because you don't know the results until after you complete them. And then you often claim, well, because the results were good, I'm going to justify doing immorality to reach goodness, to reach a moral conclusion from here on out. Dear God. Fallacious. Can't use it. And so Mormons, by misinterpreting and being miseducated by the prophets, believe in emotivism, even though it's a spiritual emotivism, as they claim, that they get a spiritual witness feeling. And therefore they believe that they are morally correct with their information. And so thus, Ray Montgomery believes he's justified to murder me this morning. Or sometime today. And believes to keep me scared and in suspense. That, I need to, always be on guard because he's going to come and get me. And it's unknown because he's not going to tell me when or how. He is an evil person. Religions even make this worse because they are anti-science and anti-logic, Socratic methodology to develop theories to be tested and confirmed for factual information, and thus automatically wrong. Any religion that goes against those methods of establishing truth are automatically wrong, no matter how threatening they are to the public at large to conform and comply to them. And so yes, America is in great danger right now by evangelicals led by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints through the Council for National Policy. They are a moral evil that are seeking to overthrow the government, to establish them as the rulers, so that they can impose their morality upon everyone. And thus the Constitution's religious freedom done away with and replaced with their religion. A theocratic state, nation. And so yes, everybody knows this is exactly what the church wants. That they want Zion, that they want their kingdom. They still call it their kingdom, even though the United States is still in charge and governing the church. That's why the church keeps pushing back to be free from the government, to run the state of Utah as they want it to be run. And that's taking away agency of other people. And that is automatically immoral. We know it as Lucifer's plan of happiness for his children. So, yeah. I watched Left Behind with Nicolas Cage last night for my bedtime movie. And it's just, I stand all amazed at Nicolas Cage's abilities. He plays everybody. Every role he plays. Brilliant actor. Classic. He even plays himself in that other movie. He's that good. But it was written by a Christian who believes in the rapture. So they used the misinformation, the supersessionism of the Jewish scriptures to develop their movie theory, which is all speculation because it's wrong and thus morally wrong. But of course, they're the script writer, and so it all ends exactly how they want it to prove that God is true, because I did a movie about it. Stupid. But there were some problems with this. The daughter of Nicolas Cage was with her brother, and they were at the shopping mall when the rapture occurred. She was holding on to him, hugging him, right there. And he just, poof, gone. She physically sees the clothes without the body on the ground. And yet, despite this physical knowledge, her Christian, which she's a anti-Christian, contending against her mother and crazy women at the airport. She now is being mocked by the scriptwriter to go around the city looking for her brother, calling out for him. Is that you? Are you there? Oh, where are you? Oh my God. And it's the same thing on the plane with Nicolas Cage as the pilot. The people are not wanting to accept reality that just happened to them. They want to create some supernatural thing to justify the natural that they all witnessed, which can't happen. So yeah, it was pretty absurd in its overall theory, but Nicolas Cage was awesome nonetheless. As an immoral father who's cheating on his wife as a pilot. And so, yeah, it was weird because they had the mistress as ignorant that he's married. And so when she finds out that he is a married man, even though his wife is now raptured, and so he's now freely available for a relationship, she does come to the right conclusion. He's been lying to you the whole time. He therefore cannot be trusted. But typically that's not the case, as we're seeing in Utah with Lori Vallow and that Tim Ballard guy. As the women in their lives are wanting to murder their wives so that they can be the wife, or if the wife refuses to have them as a second wife, that crap. And so, yeah, the church gets very abusive in regards to sexuality. They lie to you. Again, denying science. It is moral to have sex because that's the only way that the human population can increase and perpetuate. Human race would die out if we were all monks and nuns. And so we now know for a fact that abstinence only is a moral evil. But it is being perpetuated on the state of Utah and other evangelical states. And so, thus, denying abortion, denying contraception are also morally evil. I saw a Star Trek episode, to continue on to that theme, in which Captain Kirk is deceived into coming to a planet where he then is kidnapped and held hostage, believing that he's on his own ship, but everybody's gone. And then the daughter of the nation, the world leader, then comes to him and tries to get him to stay with her. She was sent specifically to be with Kirk so that she can contract the disease that Captain Kirk had acquired earlier in his life, and that he had been treated and cured for, so that it was suppressed in him. But he can still spread it to other people. And so that's why the national leader brought him to his planet, Captain Kirk to his planet, so that he can depopulate the populace. Because everybody was so crowded, they were all, all bumping into each other behind the scenes. And Captain Kirk said, well, why don't you utilize contraception and other methods of preventing an increase in the population? And the national leader says that's morally unacceptable for us. But you're okay with contracting a virus to use as a weapon against your people? because they had cured all kinds of diseases and were able to extend human life, and thus the population got out of control. Because they didn't believe in contraception. Just stupid. Who's the scriptwriter again? But we are witnessing what will be the results of immorality as contraception and abortion are being made illegal. Because then men who are told to suppress will not be able to suppress, and then they'll be the rapists, and then girls will get pregnant, and they're not allowed to have an abortion. They have to have the baby, and so babies must be born, and the population will get out of control. We know this is coming. And then once it gets out of control, then a new morality from religion will step forward to justify murdering people. You know, like the woman who gets an abortion. And thus murder her to prevent her from having more babies. When it was they, the government leaders, who were the ones who caused the problem in the first place. They will not accept that they are the causation of the problem. And you can take it to any political thing that's going on in our nation right now. They're all fallaciously argumented. They're all false and wrong, immoral. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, yeah, they are wrong. They are lying to you when they say that Jesus is our Christ, and that morality is based on obeying Him. Well, it's not Him we're obeying. It's the prophets who claim that they're speaking for Jesus and implementing all the covenant paths and laws of obedience for Mormons that the church wants to implement on those who aren't Mormon. Yeah, this is a deceptive tool that is pure evil and immoral. They're lying to you. Lying is immoral. There is no justification for lying. For Christmas time, if you want your kids to receive presents, don't tell them it's from Santa Claus. You're lying. Tell them that this is the time of the year where we try to teach people to give to other people. And so we have these traditions that have cropped up, and we have stories about a guy named Santa Claus and so forth. They're not real. They may be based on reality in some instances, like the use of an evergreen tree for the Christmas tree. But teaching kids the truth teaches morality. Whereas lying and covering up with a misinformation campaign is immoral. We should be teaching people, our kids, about the Easter beagle, not the Easter bunny. We need to tell the truth and not lie. And there has crept in the concept of white lies. No, there's no such thing. You are lying. If you are incapable of telling someone the truth, and you have to tell a lie to protect their feelings or to produce the utilitarian result of Captain or Mr. Spock, it's morally wrong. You know, if it's a Christmas present and you don't want them to know that you're at the store buying them a gift, because you know that if you tell them you're at the store buying them a gift, they're going to want to see what it is before Christmas, You need to establish boundaries and say, hey, I'm buying you a Christmas gift, back off. Don't be snooping around in the closet. Because otherwise the wife is going to believe that you're cheating on her. You're going out and having sex with other women, and thus chaos ensues, even though she should know, hey, it's getting Christmas time. But again, when you lie in a relationship, problems ensue, even if you are not intending to harm the other person. And you're doing something good and kind. When you lie about it, you automatically destroy the goodness and kindness of the action you think you're doing for the other person. And so our school systems, we in America had the greatest opportunity to be the best country in the world, morally and intelligently. We could have taught science to our children using logical Socratic methodology to do research and testing for advancements in technology and human development, and yet we're about to be destroyed this election because everybody wants to control the morality of others, which is immoral. And so one of the other abominations was that the UN, I think it was back in the 70s, I can't remember the date, they had a UN resolution in which they granted nations the right to determine the population control for their nation. That was an immoral act to the extreme. UN was formed to try to prevent future Nazi Germanys from emerging. And now we see that the UN has become a Nazi Germany towards Israel in this war of Islam against Israel. A complete metamorphosis has crept into the UN and destroyed it. The UN is now an immoral entity, and they have UN military forces, they have aid groups that are being abused now for their immoral purposes, to threaten nations that they disapprove of and allow nations to commit atrocities against other nations. The way they treat Russia is not the way they treat Israel, not the way they treat Islam. Putin needs to be stopped. Nobody wants to stop him. They keep, arguing and complaining, never actually doing anything to stop him, because their morality will not let them, even though their morality is immoral. And likewise, everybody is blaming Israel for what Islam is causing. The consequences of kids suffering, women and children suffering, is because of Islam, because of them, the Gazans. It is not the cause of Israel, but they're in denial of the causation. They're in denial of Hamas. And so all this talk about Hamas being, the bad guys that they never wanted and blah, 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 it's all BS. Because the women and children are standing side by side, if not in front of Hamas, fighting against Israel. So, no, there are no innocent civilians And so for our president to demand that Israel cease fire is morally wrong. And he got caught with his Catholicism. Netanyahu needs Jesus in his life. That's abominable. And that's what Joseph Smith called of Christianity. It is abominable, which means it is immoral. To replace the Jews and to now use that immorality replacement theory to justify hating the Jews and committing all kinds of abominations against them is abominable in and of itself. So exactly what Brigham Young did to Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. Abominable. They are the evil disposed and designing militant persons against Joseph Smith and his church. We know this because this is the results. We see the evidence in the Joseph Smith papers. Brigham Young cooed Joseph Smith's church in 1838 and replaced it. Joseph Smith got out, so they then had to plot his murder. An evil religion, an evil government, an evil economy, called a secret combination that destroyed Joseph Smith and replaced him. And it's tragic that Mormons do not see that this immorality of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that they have been embracing will lead to destruction consequences. They will never ascend to spiritual perfection. It cannot be obtained through immorality. And Mormons are in denial of it and keep pushing their immorality upon others to get the moral high ground. And they automatically lose when they do that. Ray automatically lost the moral high ground when he threatened me. Every Mormon knows this when I quote from the Book of Mormon, Alma chapter 1, about Nehor, enforcing priestcraft with violence. This is how you know that the Danites of Brigham Young are who they are, because they forged documents contrary to the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, even though they claimed it was Joseph Smith who made those documents. But guess what date they gave for those forgeries? 1838. Interesting. So when are Mormons going to realize that Alma chapter 32, starting in verse 28, is how you determine what is moral and what is immoral, which can also be found in Matthew chapter 7, the science of agronomy. A seed produces fruit after its design. A good seed cannot produce immorality. And an immoral seed cannot produce morality. Can't be done, except in a Hollywood movie.